All right, everybody, welcome to this or today's episode of We As Start Talking. I am Gareth, I'm your host for today, and I'm excited as I have Shannon Burrows on the show today. Shannon, how are you?
Good. How are you? I love the way you say my name. It
Yeah,
sounds so fancy.
it's in my, that was my best English, although it's kind of fading that accent. So it's not very, maybe I can get a second job as a voice
Well,
actor.
there you go.
Well, I'm glad you're well. As always, we'd love to just thank everyone and our guests for coming on and sharing your time, and obviously going to be sharing your story with us. So we really appreciate that. I'm excited to hear a little bit more about it. Before we kind of get into a little bit more about you and your journey, I'd love for you to share the very exciting project you've been working on with all the listeners.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm super excited, and I want to kind of backtrack for a second of
Okay.
my personality of being a Type A OCD, have to be in control of everything, and as we go into talking about my journey of being diagnosed with cancer, but I kind of let that go. Well, it started to creep up on me again. And I was like, when COVID hit and we all got put into lockdown, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this project, this project, this project. And they're all going to be perfect. And I'm going to have all this time in the world to do it, right? Like you're going to go through your photos, your closet, and every other big project you have. Well, one of them for me was to start a podcast. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. No clue. Didn't know the first thing about podcasting, but I'll be damned. I was going to research everything I could. I was going to go into groups, Google this, Google that, and I was just going to make it happen. And I did. So I sat in my closet. I've sat in my bedroom. I've sat in the guest room. I've gone everywhere and played and done all the tricks, right? And I said, okay, well, I'm just going to do this. And then I rolled it out and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to talk to nobody, and then it's going to be good because then I don't feel like I'm messing up or anything. And then 2021 came, and I was like, why am I being so perfect about everything? Like, there's nothing about me that's perfect, or anybody for that matter. So, this is my year of being imperfectly perfect. I'm going to do everything imperfectly perfect, and that includes my podcast. So, I did it. I officially did it. And today is my official live launch, if you will, of my podcast called Bustin' Out of Breast Cancer. So it's just about, thriving and surviving breast cancer with health and fitness tips and exercise.
I love it. Well, everyone go check that out. I will also add it in the show notes as well. So everyone will have a direct link there. So wherever you're listening today, click in there, have a little listen, and I have no doubt it's going to be some amazing content. And I love that the imperfectly perfect approach to life. And this is where we could all learn so much from that statement. And we talk about it so much, is that we have to be flawed, we have to fail, and we have to. And one of my absolute favorite quotes ever is, you don't have to be great to start something, but you'll never be great unless you start. And I'm trying to live my life by that. And I say I try because, again, I'm imperfectly perfect as well. So I really love that. I think that will resonate with a lot of people right from the start. And I think we're going to have a lot. It's going to come back to that quote a lot today, I think. So I'm pretty excited to hear it. So as you obviously already heard, Shannon has an amazing new podcast starting. I also give you a little disclaimer, and we might touch on this as we go through. You will hear that Shannon's got a little bit of a cough because she is just recovered from having COVID-19, which you'll all know about because unless you've been living under a rock, you'll know that there's been some changes in the world recently. So you'll notice a little bit of that. However, we are real and we are imperfect, so a little coughing on the show is going to happen.
That's
Um,
right.
I'd love to kick off today with just, you obviously mentioned already about being a cancer survivor, and your podcast is linked to that. And this is the direction that we're going to be going in the show today. So I'd love to just hear kind of, I guess, a little bit about how your journey through that and how you've kind of brought your passion for fitness and health and kind of, I guess, woven that together with, your journey and your survival and everything that has come and where that's taken you as a person, and your passion and I guess your purpose in life. So yeah, take the floor.
Wow, that's kind of like a big open loaded, like take the mic and run with it. Luckily, but maybe unfortunately, I'm a fast talker, so slow me down if I need to. That is one of my flaws, but also a bonus because I can get a lot of words in one day.
Yep.
So Um, all right, so where should I start? Geez. Well, I've always been into living a healthy life. I've always been into fitness. I always told myself that when I was going to leave the corporate world, if you were going to do anything, what would you want to spend your whole day doing? And that for me was wanting to just change people's lives. I literally from a little girl have always wanted to change the world. I don't know what that meant. I just knew that I wanted to change the world because my mom always told me that you can do anything you set your mind to. So I left the corporate world 6 years ago. I was vice president of business development. So clearly I had a lot going on my plate. And I always said to myself, where would you rather be? And I said, in the gym. I always just wanted to be in the gym. So if I could combine being in the gym and changing the world, I could just change people's lives. So I would change them through health and fitness because I really feel and do believe wholeheartedly that your health comes directly from what you put into your body. So that's going to change so many things, your mitochondria, your cells, your mindset, everything. So I really wanted to capture that being in the fitness industry. Well, no sooner do I get my perfect job, I get diagnosed with breast cancer. I have no idea how on earth I get breast cancer because I was extremely fit, still am. Well, at least I think I am, and healthy and eat healthy. I really was very conscious about that because my dad is a diabetic and there's heart disease in the family. So I just really wanted to pay attention to that. And out of nowhere, I got breast cancer. We have no history of cancer in my family whatsoever. So that was kind of shocking. However, I am silver lining Shannon. So I find the silver lining in pretty much everything in life. And I decided that that was really where my passion and my purpose collided, was being diagnosed with breast cancer. Now I am grateful. I will say I am grateful that it was caught early. So early detection does save lives, just so you know out there. Um, I was grateful it was caught early because I it allowed me to not have to go through some of the treatments that unfortunately a lot of other people need to go through. I didn't have to go through chemo. I did decline radiation and tamoxifen, and for my own personal reasons, and everybody has their own thing. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, then I'm supposed to be taking my fitness industry, my fitness profession, and now I'm going to help other breast cancer survivors. So, and in the sense of, preventing cancer, in addition to, going through their own treatment and also into their road to recovery. So there's a lot of moving parts in that. So while I was recovering, I said, well, what else am I going to do? How am I going to work with cancer patients? I don't know anything about it. In fact, I don't even know how I'm going to get myself healthy. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of, my range of, out of my own way with like trying to fix my range of motion and all of that. So I did some studying, did some research, and I became certified as a cancer exercise specialist. So that for me was kind of like another sign. It was kind of like, oh, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And again, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was going to be imperfectly perfect. I can tell you that. And and so I just did, my studying, and I really just felt like this was my way, my niche. And I realized myself, even being healthy and fit and in this profession, there were so many things that I didn't know. Like, you don't know what you don't know. So how is anybody else going to know this? If especially if somebody's not into the fitness industry or, healthy way of living, how on earth are they going to know that they should, be working with somebody who specializes in cancer exercise? Because you can't just jump back into, a regular exercise routine just because of all the different treatments and the surgeries and, your joints and your range of motion and your mindset and healthy eating. Like, there's so many different factors. So that for me was my turning point and my silver lining in my cancer journey of becoming a cancer exercise specialist. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely, it is, and we all have our why, and it's all very different. And I find as well, in our kind of lane, as I see it, and I'm big, as listeners will know, 20 years, of experience as a fitness professional in many avenues, and it's very much we all have a very unique why, and they're very much, for the most part, although they're unique to us, they're typically aligned with our own kind of story of health and well-being. However, yours is a little on the kind of left field of that in regards to obviously cancer and how that kind of drew you closer to that kind of purpose. And I really love that because it does. And this is not to discredit. I got into it through a weight loss journey, so and there's a lot of people the same as me. However, it doesn't always have the same drive maybe as your story, because it's and don't get me wrong, a weight loss journey could be life or death. I don't think it was for me at the time. And some people getting into it because they're passionate and they like being in the gym like you did initially. But I'm certain, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, I'm certain that if your passion for being healthy and fit was your driver for your career now, maybe wouldn't have had as much of a strong, deep meaning as your survival of breast cancer. So I think that is paved the way for you to be massively successful, but also the longevity of that, because there's a real overriding why that'll always keep you on track, right? Because we all come up against tough times, we all doubt what we're doing, we all get imposter syndrome, like all those things. But when you're so deep, and it's not just, well, I had a great experience by going to the gym and losing weight, sometimes we lose sight of that. And I find that when we have that real deep rooted why, it makes a big difference to the long term fitness professional, which we unfortunately, and it's getting better, but we don't see a lot of those people within the industry. They're very unique. So I'm excited for the industry to have you part of it, and doing what you're doing. So that's really exciting.
Thank you.
Now, so when it comes to that
Sorry.
career move, when it comes to that career move, stepping out of a high profile role within a completely different industry, and you make that brave step. Now that in itself takes a certain mindset, a certain approach. How did you navigate that? Because not only did you have this mindset of, I guess, possibility, and you jumped in and you were brave to make this choice to change career, but then you get hit with this U-turn, I guess, not a U-turn, but like you get hit by a truck. Basically, you tried to step out across the road of bravery and you got hit, right? And so the mindset. I'd like to hear about your mindset for career change first, and how you approached that from a very high file position, and then where most people maybe would have not continued on that journey. How did you reset that mindset off the back of cancer to keep going, and maybe sharing just some tips and some experiences with the listeners?
So I have been told by many people that I am wired differently than the average human. So with that being said, again, I had mentioned earlier that, my mom had always told me that, growing up, like it was a mindset that was instilled in me really of like, you can do anything you set your mind to. And it's true. It's like, who are you living your life for? Me? Me. That's
Yeah.
it, realistically. I mean, I guess if when you say that out loud, it's like, right, who leaves a corporate job to go work in a gym? Like that, clearly that's a pay cut. We all know that. But I was very true to myself in the sense that I've always said, if I wake up in the morning and I'm not happy with where I'm going, then it's time for me to leave, because it's doing a disservice to not only my employer, but to me, like my own happiness. So, and I do believe that there's different chapters in life. Like, I feel like it's very rare that if somebody gets a job, they're not usually in it. Like back in, I say the old days, like my parents, like they typically got a job and like that's where you stayed forever, right? Me, I'm like, there's way too much to learn out there. Like, I want to know everything. So my mindset's a little different in the sense of like, you know, I am true to myself. I will say 95% of the time. I'm not going to be unrealistic here. I do try to keep that in check. I think mindset is 100% the foundation of our framework. So, and I discuss that like in my coaching that I do with my cancer clients, and anybody really. Like mindset is that's everything. Like if you don't have a positive mindset, it's going to allow you to make really crappy decisions in life in a lot of things, whether it's your eating, whether it's your, you're going to go out and, you know, consume a bunch of things that you probably shouldn't consume, whatever. Like it's it's stemming from your mindset. And so for me, mindset was like always the most important thing for me. So whatever, I wanted to be true to myself. So yeah, I went to go take a walk across the street like the little duckling, and I got hit, and I was like, oh well, that sucked. But you know what? I didn't die, and that's always been my thing too. Like, okay, but I didn't die, so it's a setback, and I truly believe for every setback is a really kick-ass comeback. So sorry, I hope I'm allowed to swear.
Absolutely.
Okay. Um, so yeah, so for me that was it. And like I said again, thankfully it was caught early. So, I didn't have to go through a lot of the other things that some other cancer patients do have to go through. And for any other person out there listening that's gone through cancer, I wholeheartedly believe that you can change your mindset, and you truly need to change your mindset and know that you'll get through it. Cancer is not necessarily a death sentence. You just have to make sure that you can control it. It's about taking back control of your life.
Yep. So powerful. And I really love that statement. You didn't die. And that could be applied to pretty much anything in life, whether it's cancer or whether it's anything. It's career change, it's taking a risk, it's trying something new. Like, yes, there could be risky things you could do out there which could end your life. However, you could, to use my other analogy in a bit more of a morbid way, is you could just step out on the road and get hit by a truck. So it, every day you step out the front door and you wake up, there's a risk there, right? And we have to understand, and that's, bad things could happen. Yes, undesirable things could happen. However, if it doesn't end your life and you have another day on this planet, so what? Like, things, you might be less financially better off. You might have, you might make a mistake and affect other people around you. However, that's life. And that's being, again, as we will drive this home today, that's being perfectly imperfect. So we have to approach that. And I was actually listening to an audiobook recently, and I wonder if this is something that you kind of work through as well in mindset, that when we look at those things like career changes, like learning something new, because you said there's so much to learn and I want to learn it. However, I think a lot of people would say there's so much to learn that I don't know, that now I'm scared and it's so far out my comfort zone that I'm going to stay in my comfort zone. And I do this. I'm a big overthinker. So overthinking it makes us think too big. And I think when we think career change or something different away from what we're comfortable in, is we then think too big, and that stops us taking action. It sounds like you are somebody who takes action. And the point I was going to make is I'm listening to an audiobook right now by Mel Robbins, and she talks about she refers to it as Lego bricks, which I love because I'm a big Lego fan. Yes, I'm nearly 40 and still like Lego. And she replies to it as the Lego bricks. It's just one Lego brick, one little Lego brick, and you just keep going, because it's funny how I've coached clients my whole life to say, you need an end goal, but you need to focus on the little things, because that end goal will change. And you just build the little bricks and it will take you in the direction it takes you. It sounds like you probably do that very, very well. And I wonder if you have any insights as to how you do that. How do you approach that in those little kind of tiny steps in life?
I'm not always like that. I do overthink, and I do really, I do dream big, which is, a blessing and a curse at the same time, because I want to do everything and I want to like absorb everything. And I just, that's my personality. But, and it's funny because I too coach the same way of like, you have to have a why, you have to have your end result. And that end result does always change. And there's going to be trucks that are going to hit you. But if you don't take the step, you have no idea what the reward is going to be on the other side. Like, there's so many more exciting things that could be happening. I would be so bored having to do the same thing over and over again. And I'm sure it helps that, a little bit of ADD in me, but I feel like all fitness professionals have that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, like realistically, I took the leap of faith and wanted to follow my passion, which was fitness and changing people's lives. But I certainly didn't expect to get hit by a truck in the first year. But who knew? Like, obviously, I again, like I said, my purpose and my passion collide. Like, I do believe everybody's put on this planet for a reason, and you are your own individual self, and no one can be you. So why are we trying so hard to be that perfect person? Like, we're just us. Like, you're you, I'm me. Like, I'm not trying to be like you. People might want to inspire to be like somebody else, but if you don't like take action and do the things imperfectly perfect, you miss the entire journey.
Yeah.
You miss the
Oh,
entire journey.
yeah. So many people. We spoke about generations earlier, and this intrigues me when I have conversations with people. Maybe I'm approaching 40, and people maybe kind of my parents' age. I guess they're in their 60s, late 60s. When I talk to people in that generation, there tends to be a theme of regret a lot, and I think it's because of what you mentioned, where people got a job. My dad trained to be a car mechanic at like 17, did it till the day he retired. Yeah, he went garage to garage and he moved around a little bit, but he never really did anything else, for example. And actually he loved what he did. He was very comfortable and he was very happy in what he did. However, there's a lot of people that do that same thing and then live regret because there was something else. Like, he was very passionate about that, about cars. It was his life, and so I think he did something he wanted to do. But I think a lot of people are drawn to something that pays the bills, or something that's a good career that someone else suggested they should do, which I'd say is a trait of maybe a few generations back. where we kind of did what we thought needed to be done instead of exploring those passionate things. And that's one big thing is the last thing you want to do is look back on your life and regret that you didn't do something and then you ran out of time, because really time is kind of all we got, right? And you're a great advocate of that in your story. So yeah, I think that's a great, really, really great takeaway for the listeners today. Now, switching gears a little bit, because I need to find out more about this for my own selfish information, and obviously everyone else can listen in and take it away too. So, talk a little bit about, you spoke about early diagnosis with cancer, specifically breast cancer for you, and how that looked. So, I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of what, and disclaimer, neither of us are doctors and have any, a cancer specialists in the world, in the medical world. However, I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of your diagnosis and kind of how those, what you did to ensure that was early, or did you, or was it luck, and how that kind of played out for you in the early stages, because I know a lot of people will be listening as wanting to find out that information and be a bit more informed.
Well, thanks for asking that question, because this, I feel like, is a huge topic that never gets discussed, and that's hormones. Okay. So for me, like I said, with no cancer in our family, so cancer was never ever a thought in my mind. Now, I will say, now that I've had cancer, every time there's something wrong, I'm like, oh my God, cancer's back. Like, and every cancer patient will tell you, survivor will tell you that, like, the littlest thing is like, oh my God, it's spread, whatever. But so for me, again, being in the fitness industry and being healthy, and this might be a little bit too much TMI, so you just tell me to nix it. But so I had about 6 days. This is back in May 2017, like around Mother's Day ish, and I had about 6 days of the feeling of high blood pressure and anxiety. So it was like the vicious cycle of, like, you start feeling anxious, and then all of a sudden your blood pressure skyrockets, and then you're like, oh my God, what's happening? You're like, oh my God, I'm dying. Like, right? Like everything's like, oh my God, I'm dying. Well, then I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, another day. Like, we'll just, try to monitor it. I'm like, God, did I get enough sleep? And when you're into, like, I I am in tune with my body. And I know that that's not very common. Again, I told you I feel like I'm wired a little bit differently, but it's extremely important to be really in tune with your body. So I had that for about 6 days, and I had a doctor, but, according to my insurance, I hadn't really seen my doctor yet because I was healthy. So they're like, oh, sorry, we can't see you for a month. I'm like, I'm going to die by then. Like, I'm going to have a stroke by then. So anyway, I called my husband, and he got me into his doctor, like within 40 minutes. I got in there, my blood pressure was 170 over 130.
Jesus.
And I was like, man, what is wrong with me? Now, I knew my hormones were out of whack because I had gone through in vitro to have my daughter. Now, I preference that because when you go through in vitro fertilization, they pump you with a bunch of hormones. So I knew my hormones were already out of whack way back. So I thought, okay, well, maybe something's going on with my hormones. Now, I was at that time of my cycle that month in I guess this was May. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just like something's out of whack. At that point I was 45 years old. I was like, okay, maybe I'm doing, perimenopause things, like what's happening to me, whatever. So I immediately said in the doctor's office, I was like, I need you to check my hormones. Like, I just want to know that, like, maybe it's just my hormones are out of whack, like whatever. And I'm not one to say, just give me medication or a pill. Obviously, in the health and fitness industry, we really try to stay away from that, right? So um, he was like, well, I need to give you anxiety medication and high blood pressure. I was like, no, we're not. We're actually going to find out what the root of the problem is. So that's where I feel like the biggest thing in our medical system is. But anyway, you're in Canada. So anyway, I said, I'm not taking that. I'm like, let's figure out what the root of the problem is. So, please check my hormones. He said, well, I can't check your hormones. I have to do your woman's wellness exam. I was like, great, because mine just died last month of brain cancer. Kid you not. Like, it literally just happened like that. So, excuse me. Um, Fast forward, they end up, testing my hormones, so on and so forth. And he said, well, when's the last time you had a mammogram? I was like, I don't know, whenever the last time I had one was. I literally missed 1 year, sent me for my mammogram. And when he gave me a pill to bring down my blood pressure, or else I had to go to the ER. So I had to go back the next day. Well, this is the TMI part. So I ended up getting my menstrual cycle that morning. which I preference that because that ties in with the hormones. Okay, your progesterone and your estrogen levels fluctuating. So I mentioned that, and then I felt totally fine, right? So then I started doing a ton of research. I went for my mammogram. From there, they're like, "Oh, you need to go for a little bit more invasive. You need to go for an MRI, biopsy, so on and so forth." Hence the breast cancer diagnosis. I never ever would have gotten that diagnosis if I did not listen to my body. I literally could have started my menstrual cycle and I'm like, "Oh, feel fine," and never would have known that. So I say that and I get that deep into detail because so many things in our bodies are affected by our hormones. And so many things that we put into our body affect our hormones. So if we can just go back to the beginning of what we put into our body, so many things can change in regards to our health, right? What we feed, what we put into our body. Food is thy medicine. Exercise is medicine, right? Pretty basic stuff. So from there, I started doing a lot of research on what happens to your body, like when your hormones are fluctuating and the symptoms and stuff that you feel, and exactly that, like your progesterone's dropping, and the same goes for thyroid. Like realistically, so many people don't pay attention to their body, or they get diagnosed with something and they get a pill when they can reverse it. Just get in tune with your body, listen to your body, do your own research. If that's one thing I can really 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 drive to your audience is you are the conductor of your own life. You are the conductor of your own health journey. Like you have to take control of that. No one
Yeah.
else can do it for you. Would you just drop the mic on me? Boom.
it's it, that's so important, and that resonates with me too. And sometimes we have to look a little deeper, and I think second opinions is the other thing. And this is definitely not a this is no slur on the medical profession at all, but like we said, no one's perfect. You're not going to catch every doctor's not going to catch everything, and sometimes you might need that second opinion, or you might need to do a bit of your own research and kind of see and maybe ask questions and be okay with that. Like as long as you're doing it in a respectful way, that is majorly important. And I think for anyone listening, so any women listening and any men with women in your life, which I'm sure you've definitely got one, but many, I imagine, is don't miss your mammograms. Clearly, because 1 year could make literally 12 months made a big difference. And that's something that obviously in continuation of that would raise things early. We would hope for anyone that gets a diagnosis. So it it's so interesting how, and I wasn't aware of this, how interesting the hormones are affected by cancer in the body. And obviously now I've just put two and two together, that, and as you said, that how that affects menstrual cycle, and how that affects how maybe you experience the menstrual cycle. So, and that's something now I'm thinking, wow, like how many times even like my wife has said to me, oh, I feel it feels totally off this month. It's totally different, or it's affecting me. It's making me more tired, or it's making me more anxious, and how that could possibly be a signal that I'm now aware of to look at. And I think I'm sure many people are listening. I'm sure many men that maybe have never really processed that with the women in their life. So yeah, that's something I'm going to take a really good mental note of to just pay attention to, and maybe just kind of put that reminder back in, without scaring the life out of everybody. But put that idea out there, and I think that's it will be fascinating to a lot of people. Do you find that in your work and coaching clients, is that something that women are aware of, with that are experiencing, going through cancer, aware of how their hormones are affected, or is that something you have to raise awareness about?
I definitely have to raise awareness about, especially, especially thyroid. So many people have thyroid issues, when they're trying to lose weight or gain weight or whatever. That's a huge red flag. I usually try to mention, please always go just get your blood work done. Have a baseline. Always have a baseline. And I do feel like everybody has cancer in them at some point, right? It's just how you're going to activate the cell or not. And I use cancer pretty much as like a messenger. So it was a messenger to me personally, in the sense of like, dial it in. You need to really regulate your hormones. You need to know what is happening in your body. So when that happens again, you're not like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Right. So, and to piggyback off of what you just said about, paying attention and recognizing that from a male perspective, it really is true. Cause my husband would tell me, you're like psychotic, like, around that time of the month. And yeah, it's not fun. It really is not fun. It's a horrible feeling. Like hormones suck. But and the same thing for males too. Like, you have, balances of testosterone or, high or low or whatever, and that affects your energy level and your thinking and how you process things. It's hormones are such a huge, huge, huge factor in your overall health. And I really just think that everyone should try to dial into it and dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and I think that we listen to in 70 plus countries around the world, and a lot of people listening will have very different experience from the health and medical system from wherever they're from. But just from my experience, like I grew up in England till I was 25 or so, and I would have had, as far as I was aware, I'm sure if I'd asked the question, but as far as I was aware, there was no regular kind of like check-ins. There were no kind of like health visits or med checkups. There were no opportunities to get blood work done on a regular basis and have hormones checked. Any of these things that were, if they were available, weren't publicized. I feel like in Canada for sure, and this will vary in the US too, where you are, but it, in Canada it's openly available, and we can ask for those things, and it's encouraged. So I'm very, very grateful. And don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but I'm very grateful to live in a country and have been, kindly adopted by many people around me into this country, and we're able to get those things. So utilize them when you need to. Like if you feel like you want those things and you want those numbers and you want to see it in black and white, ask the question and get that support. And and it could be very different for everybody, but explore it, because as I said, in England I'm sure it is available. However, maybe we're just not always aware of it. How is that typically with the clients that you have and what they're going through? How do you find, is there a big variance in kind of what I described and kind of the medical world down in the US?
You don't want to get me started on that down here.
And next question.
And next, no, there is a huge flaw in our medical system, and because of that, but I am grateful that there are, a lot more holistic doctors out there or natural doctors that understand that, there's underlying issues that you can actually just regulate. And I'll go back to like, I went to the doctor because I was feeling that way, right? Anxiety and high blood pressure. What's the first thing they wanted to do? Put me on pills. I'm like, no, I understand you went to school to be a doctor because you wanted to be a doctor for whatever reason. And you're taught this is the symptoms, this is the diagnosis, and this is the pill that goes with it. Like, right? It's like playing that matching game as a kid. Well, that's not necessarily always the case. Like, I don't want to be on medication the rest of my life. I want you to find out what the root of the problem is.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, I was the conductor of my own health journey and said, no, we're going to find out what the root of the problem is. And that's one big message I would love to just get across to all of your listeners is please just listen to your body and be your own advocate for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's obviously a time and a place for medications, and I want to
Sure.
be clear on that. And it actually
Yes.
reminds me, we had so back in, I say back in, we're recording kind of this week on the show, which will be early January. But listeners, if you're tuning in for the first time or you want to go back and listen to a really impactful episode, Carl, one of our hosts, had Addison Brazil, who is the founder of a company called Tether. And he was talking about his journey through mental health and through losing lots of people close to him in his life. And he spoke a lot about how medication was a very early thing that was suggested to him, but it was something that he didn't feel comfortable, partaking in. However, down the line, he did eventually, it got to a point where he did need to use it for a temporary basis, but there were other options, and it wasn't a medication for life. So, and that, that kind of gears a bit more towards mental health as opposed to physical health. However, I think that just summarizes it so well from what you said and his experience is we have times where we really need it. However, it's okay to explore other things, unless it's like, life or death, but explore other things and see what's out there and understand if there's other ways for you to navigate whatever you're going through. So I think that's important. And, it just means asking questions. It doesn't mean it has to be one or the other. It can be a mixture of both. And, we, like you said, we can navigate our own journey and advocate for ourselves probably better than we all generally do on a daily basis. So important. So I have a question. So I was doing some snooping because that's what a good podcast host does. And I was looking through your Facebook page and looking through your website, and I found many interesting things that resonated with me and informed me. And one big thing that really stuck and something that really drew me to you and having you on the show was how everybody at We Start Talking, we talk about how we're trying to change the world one conversation at a time. Now, on your website, one of your big taglines is how you want to change the world one smile at a time. And the SMILE is a acronym, which I'd love for you to describe to the listeners and talk a little bit about. And I'm sure we'll find 1,000 conversations linked in there. But yeah, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for recognizing that, because I am super proud of that tagline. I don't know. It was just I was working in the corporate world, and again, probably just dreaming and thinking about what I really wanted to do, and back to the whole thing of I really just wanted to change the world. Well, how do I want to do that? Like, I've always smiled. Smiling has always been my thing. I take fun very serious. I don't take life that serious, like especially after having, cancer diagnosis, but um I say that lightly, like of course I take life seriously, but um but anyway, I like to smile. I'm like, okay, well, how are we going to incorporate that into changing the world? So, changing the world one smile at a time. And SMILE stands for simply making individual lifestyle enhancements. So, realistically, and I use those in my course that I do with breast cancer survivors, and I use those as my pillars, right? If realistically you can just make one little change in your life every single day for the better, like, it doesn't take a lot. You don't have to like clear out your entire closet. You don't have to clear out everything that you have in life and do everything all at once. It's just do something little. Do something little. Do it imperfectly perfect. Just do something, like, to have a positive momentum in the right direction to change your life. Like, it's that easy. Maybe
It's
you wake up a little bit earlier and you jot down three things you want to accomplish for the day. Maybe you say three awesome, amazing things about yourself for the day, or like three wins you had for the day. Something easy, something simple that's not going to derail you and feel like you're having to change everything in your life all at once.
it's so funny full transparency, that's the first time I'm hearing that. So I saw the tagline and I was drawn to it and I wanted to know more about it. So now I've heard it. Is how interesting how 20 minutes ago we were discussing the Lego bricks and the small little actions. And I had a really good friend of mine on the show way back last year. So shout out to Phil Agostino. He spoke a lot about minimal daily action and how these like minimal daily things that you should do and that's how he approaches coaching. He's in the fitness industry too. And how he approaches his coaching is that. And it sounds like basically all of us are aligned in a different way and we all have our own way of describing it. However, it's all about those small, little measurable things that we do on a daily basis. And how I see, 20 years, I've probably 15 to 20,000 hours of coaching. And in my experience and the hundreds and hundreds of people that I've coached is I often find that I have to switch their mindset because they are hyper focused and mentally absorbed by the goal. And goals are important, don't get me wrong, but the end goal and the enormity of the end goal, and they have very, very little focus and they're not absorbed by the action that needs to be taken. And I'll give an example for listeners, and they would have heard this on probably many shows I talk about it, but if somebody comes in and says, okay, I've got 12 months and I want to lose 100 pounds, and I'm going to work out. To do that, I'm going to work out every day for 2 hours, and I'm going to eat clean every day, and I'm going to have chicken and broccoli, 3 meals, and egg whites. Great. Yeah, sure. That's what, a professional bodybuilder might do. However, the likelihood that they're going to keep to that action is very, very minimal. And I understand that because they have an enormity of the goal, their action is an enormity. However, flipping the mindset. So this goal is important. Yes, well, I want you to focus. And then they're like, well, that seems ridiculous. Why are you only asking me to work out for 30 minutes, 3 days a week? Like, because that's what you're going to stick to. From my opinion, my professional opinion, and trusting my gut and seeing what's in front of me is I know this person realistically on their habits and what they've done in the past, that doing 30 minutes of exercise 3 times a week is probably doable. and maybe they make one small change, like they try and drink 2 liters of water a day, and they see that as such a small thing, and I've had to deal with this frustration from clients and this pushback, and I'm sure that you have experienced the same thing.
Yeah, it's so true. Like I have to laugh. That's why I kind of did like the monkey slap my face and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna work out 2 hours a day." I'm like, "Oh, God, that's awful. That doesn't even sound fun. Nothing about that sounds fun." And yes, so many people focus on like the big thing, but that goes back to what we were talking about earlier: is you miss the entire journey. If you're so hyper focused on that end result, on that big goal, you miss the entire journey. It's the same thing with my podcast, right? Like, how am I gonna change the world one smile at a time if I don't get it out there? If I'm not sharing with the world and helping these cancer survivors, what good is that? That's totally defeating my purpose, right? So in regards to the whole dieting and exercise thing, like I hate that word diet. Like, first of all, I call it my 4 letter word. Don't use that 4 letter word around me because in my opinion, and how I approach it in coaching is that means that you have a end result, right? And then what happens after that? You're going to go back to doing the same things you were doing before? Right. And lifestyle enhancements, just make those lifestyle changes, right? No, I don't want you to quit this and quit that and then you're going to, do it for a 28-day cycle or a 6 month or a year. No. No, I want you to do it forever. I want you to make it part of your lifestyle, right? Sure, you want to eat chicken and broccoli 3 times a day? More power to you. But guess what? I'm going to knock out a steak.
Yeah, you're on your own because I'm not doing that.
Right. I'll be over here. I'll have my steak and my wine, but yeah. Um, it's all about moderation, right? It's just about making those. And again, back to doing your own research. Do the things that you know that you will stick to.
Yeah,
I would never tell you I'm going to go work out for 2 hours a day. I'd be like, nah, that's nice. Nope,
yeah.
never.
You got to do what, and that's it, right? People always ask that, like, how do you stay so motivated? How do you stay so disciplined? And da da da. And I'm like, I always say, well, I can tell you, but it's pointless for you because that's not for you. Like, I found something that works for me, that's sustainable for me. It took me 20 plus years, but of doing all the stupid things that I don't need to do. That's what's important. So anyone that's listening, that's looking to make, this episode is going to go out early in the year. So if you're looking at things for 2021 and you're trying to find those things, you've got to find things that work for you, that you see as being sustainable. If you say to yourself you're never going to drink alcohol again, but you can't see yourself doing that for the rest of your life, stop making things too difficult for yourself. Make it simple. Maybe you say, I'm not going to drink Monday to Friday, or I'm going to have, I'm going to limit it to one drink, or whatever it is. Like something sustainable that you, like you said, right, that you can see yourself doing it, that you're going to stick to. Because more power to you if you're going to do something and stick to that. However, we spoke about somebody being wired differently. Somebody that's going to do something very extreme is wired differently than the average person. And I know because I've trained hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people, and there's probably half a dozen that are wired like that. And that's it. And everyone else is wired a little, should we say more normally? It's probably not the right way to say it. Are wired like the average person is wired, and they're gonna do something, and they're probably gonna go at it hardcore for a bit, and then they're gonna fall off because it's not sustainable. And that's the average person's mindset, and that's fine because that's what we deal with on an everyday basis, and what I've dealt with my whole career. So it's trying to find things that work, right? It's finding those little daily habits, those little minimal things that you can do, whatever that looks like. And we've recorded hundreds of episodes that talk about this, so there's many out there to go back and listen to. I think the big message here is it doesn't change regardless of what you're going through. If it's a physical limitation, if it's, you're going through cancer, if you're going through anything, mental challenges, it doesn't change. Or maybe it does, but in my opinion, it doesn't change. It's the same approach with a different set of parameters. Would you say that's fair based on the kind of, the speciality area you work in?
100%. And on the topic of you want to set something that's realistic and have something that you're going to stick with, because when you do the 4 letter word, the diet, and then you fall off the wagon because you've decided to make everything so drastic, you're immediately saying to yourself you're a failure. And then you get frustrated and then you stop. So what's the point of that, right? Like, that's why I feel like it's a 4 letter word. It's like a bad word. Like, don't do that. Just make the little things because, and again, back to individual lifestyle enhancements, right? Like, literally the little things. Celebrate the wins, the small wins. Okay. For example, with coaching cancer clients, if you can just get up and walk to the bathroom, like standing straight up, that's a huge win.
Yep.
Because, for example, double mastectomy, you have the rounded shoulders, right? So you have the rounded shoulders, you have the tight chest muscles, so it's really so then you have forward head tilt, right? Then you add all that compression down your spine, and then you're just trying to stand up. Like, oh my god, the day that I could stand up and put my shoulders back, I was like, yes! Like those are small little victories. Those are small wins. Those are the things that you can get excited about and celebrate. You don't want to just look at me like, okay, well, this is a setback. Well, I'm a quitter. I'm a failure. Look at me. No, no.
Celebrating the
Small little
journey,
wins.
right? It's
Yeah.
funny. I saw something, and I can't remember. I want to quote whoever it was, but I saw somebody quote. It was somebody quoting a quote from someone else, but it was about how becoming is always better than being. And I think that talks to that so much, right? Like it's absorbing it and being present in that journey, because so often we're not, because we're so transfixed. And I hold my hands up, like guilty as charged, because I'm a big kind of what's next person, and I don't spend enough time in the beauty of success and the beauty of whatever it might be, like this podcast or my career. Like I definitely look back on my career and haven't celebrated the big successes that come in it, and it's always okay, well that's great, what's next, and move on to the next thing. And rather than spending a few days in that, and I think regardless of what it is you're achieving, whether it's a fitness goal or a recovery or whatever, is spend time celebrating. Like you said, celebrate that open posture that you haven't been able to do for the last 3 months, or celebrate the consistency of getting those 3 30-minute workouts in for the last month, and celebrating that, rather than asking, when do I do it 5 days a week, right? Or when's the next thing, when's the next plate of chicken and broccoli or whatever you're eating. So it's
Baby
that.
steps.
Yeah, baby steps, right? And then absorbing that and taking that on board, rather than beating ourselves up for not being more. Yes, sure, want to be more, and continue to strive and move forward, because that's
Sure.
important, but celebrate that, and that, becoming is better than being is so pivotal. And if we're not doing all the things we spoke about today, taking forward steps, being brave, embracing, our journey, is we're not embracing the becoming, which is, we're always becoming. We're never a finished article, so you have to embrace that and enjoy it. And such an important message.
Yeah, and it goes through everything. I mean, even just like we talked about at the beginning, like launching my podcast, like little babies, just do something. Do something to move forward, right? Same thing with the career. If you're doing a career change, you got to do something. You have to learn, you have to start somewhere. Same thing with parenting. You have to, no one has no one says, "Okay, I'm going to be the best parent ever. I'm going to be the best mom. I know everything there absolutely is to know about it," right? No. I didn't know I was going to have to go through in vitro to have my daughter. What? Now I got to learn about that? I lost her twin, right? So she's my miracle baby. Literally, I call her my miracle baby. And you just have to embrace those little moments. I will, hands up, tell you the same thing. Like I'm just like you in the sense of like, all right, I gotta be driven, I gotta be go, 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 go. And then I have to stop. Like when she's just like, "Mommy, can I just share with you like what I got on my math test?" Yes, absolutely. Stop me, please, and tell me all about your math test, because she's my miracle baby. Like, what if I never got that opportunity to have that? You know, like those, like if you can just change your mindset to think about, I do believe everything happens for a reason. I do believe people are put into your life for certain reasons at certain times. And I totally believe, as one of my business mentors have said, you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now.
You don't even understand how much I needed to hear that today. So thank you. But that's a struggle, and for anyone tuning in that suffers with anxiety, will needs that. Like, I want to write that down. I might put it up on the wall, in a picture frame, because I think that will resonate, and something I suffer a lot with, and I'm sure there'll be many people listening that suffer with anxiety. And it, knowing that that you're where you need to be right now is so important, and that it almost strips away. I've had it today. I've had it a week, actually. A new year, and lots of things going on with COVID and the world of fitness changing, and it's the landscape is very different, and it's navigating that and not knowing what the future is going to look like. And this is not just the fitness industry; it's everyone's industry, but it's very much so, because it's a very hands-on, customer-facing industry, right? So it's had a big change, and the anxiety around that is something that I've struggled to cope with, and a lot of my a lot of my colleagues and other people I'm connected with have struggled with. So hearing that you're where you're meant to be from whatever circumstances have caused that, being a global pandemic for this example, is we're where we're meant to be, and we will navigate it and figure it out, and it's part of the becoming, right? And that's almost like that statement, this hour recording, and everyone listening, I'm sure you're getting lots from it. So, but selfishly, that has just made me just stripped away of a lot of that anxious feeling that I have in my body right now, just from hearing that.
Good.
So, yeah. So look at that,
Well, I'm glad I could
free,
help you.
yeah, free coaching sessions over here. We start talking.
Silver
Um,
Lion Shannon, here I
yeah,
am.
right. Yeah, I think that is, and it's something that hasn't even maybe over associated to it, but yeah, it's really really powerful, really interesting. Um, so switching gears, because I got something else I wanted to
Yeah.
touch on, and I think this is again I think is an important for the journey. And you obviously been through your struggles with health. It sounds as though obviously you find the silver lining and you've been very positive and you've been successful with business, but how does it affect you? How does cancer and going through that affected your mindset current day and affected your health? Like, do you have struggles on a daily basis now? Is there things that you navigate every day when you wake up or on a weekly basis that other people might be going through, some sort of health challenge or, particularly breast cancer, that would benefit from hearing maybe what you go through on a daily basis and how that maybe affects you and what you have to navigate?
If I told you no, I'd be lying. Yes, I'm extremely positive. Yes, I do have a good mindset. Yes, I am wired differently. Yes, I have my own stuff, right? We all do. It's a choice. I feel like it's a choice. Mindset is a choice, lifestyle is a choice, and I choose to wake up happy. I choose to be kind to myself. I choose to put myself in situations that are going to move me forward. I choose to remove negative people from my life. Going through cancer, I lost one of my best friends. She never even who I thought was my best friend, um, lived across the street in the different development, and she walked in my house and never even once said, "How are you?" All she did was talk about her day. I'm sitting there with a drain hanging off of me. And I removed some in laws, some other family members from my life that were very negative and toxic. And that was very empowering to know that I had control of my life. So I do struggle with the sense of, because I am so happy and positive, if I do have those days that life just sucks, it's it's hard for people to understand and accept, because they're like, oh my god, Shannon's not happy and in control, like what's happening, like whatever. Those are struggles, on a mental aspect. On a physical aspect, the hopefully I don't cry. This is the only thing in my entire cancer journey that breaks me down, is I never knew that I would never have feeling in my breasts again. I never knew that. So my miracle baby, who was 9 at the time, she's now 12. So when she puts her head on my chest, like I can't feel her. And like hugging, like I don't have that feeling. Like as a woman, um, you don't realize how much your breasts are like your body. You know what I mean? Like as I spoke about this, I think it was my podcast or on a post, but like we as a teenager, we hate when we're blossoming, right? We're like, oh, we don't want these boobs. Like my daughter's going through right now. Like, who wants these? You try to tape them down, or you're like, oh, these are awful, or whatever. Like the whole puberty thing, right? And then you get older, and if you end up having kids, great. And then hopefully you get to breastfeed, right? That's your connection to your child. Like that is, they are giving life to your baby. And then you put that baby on your chest and you just snuggle with them. And then you make jokes about how when you're older and you've breastfed that they fall to your armpits, right? When you lay down, it's like kind of like a joke as a woman. And now I don't even have that feeling. Like I don't get to feel her like when she wants to lay on me to snuggle. It's like they're like blocks, like it's like a barrier. So that is my biggest struggle. As you can tell, that's the only thing that breaks me down, is that. So the struggle is real right there. my
Yeah,
friend.
and I can, and everyone can hear that, and I can obviously see it as we're on a video recording right now. Firstly, thank you for sharing and being vulnerable enough to share that, because this is what we're all about when we talk about changing one conversation at a time. And changing the world one conversation at a time, is the vulnerability and the shared experience gives permission to other people to feel that and understand it's not just them, because there will be people listening that have, it might not be that physical block, but it might be something else physically that's going on that maybe has that same emotional response. And definitely never, never apologize for that sharing and that emotional state. We do lots of crying on We Are Start Talking, so you're not alone.
So good. So I fit right in. Excellent.
Hosts and guests. So yeah, we almost celebrate that we can open up a safe space to allow someone to do that. It's kind of like it's like a little tick on the episode. So that's good news. Yeah, and that must be a real, and I think that just opens up, and not even just from a breast cancer standpoint, but from anyone that struggled with maybe breastfeeding. Um, I think that would resonate a lot, right? Because you spoke about that connection. Although you may have the feeling, you may not be able to. And I'm sure many people that don't understand, I have an experience of this through our pregnancy and having an infant, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But many people would brush that aside as like not being able to breastfeed. And that's kind of where my mind's going. Obviously, I have no experience of cancer or breast cancer, but the experience of breastfeeding that some women aren't able to do for whatever reason is, it would almost strip a level of connection, I imagine. And for a lot of people, and my wife, she won't mind me talking about this, but is the we had an issue where our daughter she was able to feed off of one side but not the other side, and a lot of that was driven by, she came out with her head turned awkwardly to one side, and it meant she couldn't turn her head, or she could but she wouldn't stay there and feed. And as I'm sure a lot of people will understand if they breastfed, is if you're not using that breast, it's going to stop producing and not function. So this is basically what happened to Nikki, my wife, and that was even emotionally difficult, that you weren't able to use both, and both weren't functioning. And I can't even imagine where there's no feeling, or that you're not able to, or whatever it is that someone's going through on that, at any level, is it's something I think a lot of us would take for granted and wouldn't even consider. So again, it's just a great opportunity for myself and others to learn that impact and understand the and it's a bit like, I refer it a bit like to mental health, where it's the invisible struggle that people don't see.
That's a perfect way to put it. The invisible struggle.
Yeah.
Yep. That, and when it comes to exercising and even just laying down, like I can't lay on my stomach anymore. I can't lay on my stomach. I always have to sleep on my back. It's miserable. That's probably my biggest daily struggle is sleeping sucks. Um, no more push-ups. So there's that. I know there's other cancer survivors out there that'll get right back into bodybuilding and they'll do this, that, and the next, but I'm a huge proponent of wanting to take care of my body. And I'm certainly not going to put it through the ringer again by doing something that I shouldn't be doing to end up in more surgeries. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. If it was like no more burpees, that might be a silver lining. But
I
push-ups,
love
yeah,
burpees.
me, me too. I know some of my clients listen to the show though, and they'll be laughing about that. And I'll be like, if there was a reason I didn't have to do any more of those, I'd be happy. But yeah, it's so, and again, right, things we don't think about, things we're just not in a daily, we're not in a daily struggle with, so we forget. And it's just raising our, a big thing that we're keen on, in our channel and on our shows, is that we're raising empathy for us as hosts, but also for everybody listening, and understanding that, right, the things that you're not able to do. And it could be physical, it could be emotional, and not knowing, right. And that also, I think, leads us to, and I'm sure this will bring up some more points, but the judgment on that a lot of people will judge others on their inability to do something, or their emotional state around something, without understanding, like your story, there's that invisible struggle, right, that you aren't able to, people aren't able to see it, so then they'll judge on whatever the end result is. And is that, do you find with either yourself or with clients, and obviously we're not naming names, but where maybe they struggle with the level of judgment they get because people aren't aware of what they're going through?
I think that happens with anybody, whether you're going through cancer or not. I think there's two ways. I'm going to be careful about how I word this because sometimes I can come across as not being very empathetic, and that's not the case. It's not that I'm not empathetic. I try to get through to their mindset. I try to make them stronger, almost with a tough love, but understanding that not everybody is wired the same as me. So sometimes you just need to stroke the back a little bit more and ease your way into it, right? Because everybody has their own struggles, whether it's going through obesity or cancer or depression or anxiety or jobs or whatever, relationships. So I feel like everybody always has that struggle. I think it's just a matter of having that safe place, that safe person that you can share that with in order to be vulnerable. Some people will tell me that you need to be more vulnerable. And I'm like, I'm pretty much an open book. Like I've shared my entire journey over the internet, like from scars to my breasts to everything, to be vulnerable, to share that with other women, to understand that this is real. The struggle is real. It's just a matter of how you are going to handle that, right? You're going to own it, you can own it and you can make changes and make those little individual lifestyle enhancements. Or you can play the victim. And I don't play that game. I don't think that I don't think you're meant to play the victim. I think you're meant to live life to its fullest. So you need to take control of that, right? Take back control of your life.
100%. And the I think is an important thing that just kind of came up for me there is that vulnerability looks different for everybody. So my level of vulnerability is not someone else's level of vulnerability, and we talk a lot about kind of open book and creating a safe space. However, some people will come into it thinking that and a lot of people will come on as guests and say, oh well, I don't really want to talk about that. Like, that's fine. Vulnerability isn't necessarily talking about everything. Vulnerability is talking about things that maybe you think can help others, right?
Mm-hmm.
I talk a lot about, I'm a big fan of the quote, when we open up and we talk about things, it kind of writes the permission slip for other people. And that's that's so important. And I kind of mentioned this, I touched on it earlier, where talking about a cancer journey, talking about whatever it might be, a physical, mental struggle, it lets people know that they're not alone. And I know from experience, opening up and talking about your struggles, it helps us. It allows other people to feel safe to do the same thing, and as a result, creating this platform to do that from. And then other people will get to experience the same relief and the same move forward in their life by doing the same thing. And that looks different for everybody, because we might not be ready to talk about everything or share everything. But like you said, some people want you to be more vulnerable. However, in your opinion, you are being vulnerable. So I think that's important, that we take our personal opinion on what vulnerability looks like, and accept that as good enough. Maybe it becomes more, maybe it doesn't. So I think that's really, really important. And for anyone listening who maybe wants to be a future guest on the show and is concerned about that we're gonna dig in and open everything up, which sometimes we do, but sometimes we don't, and that's okay. Maybe it's just we're vulnerable about one thing but not about another thing, and that, like everything, right? That's that minimal daily effort. Being vulnerable about one thing allows you to be vulnerable about the next thing, right? The things I speak about now at my point in life that I would literally hadn't shared with another human until I was, till this year even. So, but I'd shared other things. So it's just a journey, right? It's that
Absolutely.
becoming more vulnerable. So I think it all interweaves and aligns.
And on that vulnerability track, like I just said, like I feel like I've been really vulnerable in a lot of things, but some people may say maybe I should be a little bit more vulnerable. But that one little thing that you say or I say within this podcast or whatever, like that could resonate with somebody. And that was my level of vulnerability or your level of vulnerability, right? But it was enough that it still impacted somebody else's life, right? Like for me to even just say to you, for example, like you're right where you're supposed to be. And like you were just like, oh, holy cow. Okay, well, maybe somebody else is going to feel the same way, right? Maybe someone that's listening can resonate with me not having any sensation and feeling in my breast and not being able to have that bonding with your child. Maybe me being that vulnerable about that, they're going through a situation in their life right now where they think life is horrible and whatever, or maybe they're mad at their kid or whatever, and they go hug their kid because they do have that feeling. You know what I mean? Like if that could just change somebody's life like that, to be like, I gotta check myself,
Oh,
just to change their mindset.
oh, you don't know how much I'm gonna squeeze the life out of my daughter with her pulled into my chest when I pick her up today. she's going to be like, get off me.
Yeah.
Um, and she's only 4, so if I squeeze her too tight, well, hurt her. So I have to be very careful. But yeah, just that. As soon as you said it, the first thing I thought of, and any parent listening will understand this, first thing I thought of, and I'm going to straight to do that, and I'm going to be so present in it because you never know when you don't have that, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Being present in it, right? Full circle, bringing that back around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a absolutely amazing point in the show to, well, firstly, ask if there's anything else. Is there anything else, Shannon, that you wanted to share with the listeners? Is there anything else that you felt we missed touching on, or that you wanted to, just discuss? Because I'm open. However, we can wrap up as well. So let me know.
I would just like to make sure that anybody that gets diagnosed with breast cancer, I really, really, really want you to be your own advocate, be your own conductor, ask all the questions. If you have questions that you would like to ask me because you don't know what to ask, you don't know what you don't know, I'm happy to help. I created actually a 30-page resource guide for all breast cancer survivors that they can take with them to the doctor's office to kind of hit on, the top 10 questions for your getting your diagnosis and for surgeries and for treatments and just really important. I journaled everything. I journaled everything because I knew I wanted to share with other people because I didn't have all the access. I had access to some friends that were survivors, but I didn't really know what to do. And one really super important thing that I really want to make sure to piggyback on that is I have seen and heard women get diagnosed and literally they end up in surgery like the following week, which is like a tailspin. Like you don't even get a chance to process it. And it is like it's a diagnosis. You have been diagnosed with cancer. Like you need time to process that. And your spouse or loved ones still need time to process that. And do not let any doctor tell you that you need to go into surgery immediately. You don't. I want you to be able to really do your research. That's been my biggest thing is to be your own advocate and do your research and really know what you're getting into. Ask questions, get second opinions, do the things that you need to do.
Yeah, I love that. So important that we own that and we expose ourselves to as much knowledge and information as possible from our doctors and also from the many amazing resources like the resources that you have, Shannon. And I think that's so important. Anyone that wants to reach out and and take up that very very gracious offer of support, just head over to the show notes because I'm going to put everything in there. Website, podcast, Facebook, Instagram, like all those things will be in there for you to just simple one click and you can get access to lots of great information. And what has been, what is no doubt based on this conversation, we've had an absolutely amazing experience and conversations that people can be having with you. So I thank you for that. I also thank you for being on the show, sharing your story, being vulnerable and doing what this podcast is all about, which is to start talking, to share, to give that permission to others through through vulnerability and experiences. So yeah, I truly appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If you have nothing else to add on top of that, then I'm gonna sign off the show. So any
Well,
final thoughts?
thank you so much for having me and thank you for allowing me to share my story and my journey and hopefully this will allow me to help change the world one smile at a time. And
Yeah.
obviously I did yours because you took something away of being in the moment, right? You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And realistically, at the end of the day, we're all just doing our best, right? We're doing everything imperfectly perfect.
Yeah. Love it. Perfect place to finish. Listen, everyone, thank you for tuning in. We truly appreciate it. If you can, any likes, any shares, 5-star ratings on Apple, reviews, all these things help. This podcast is its reach is only as big as everybody shares and supports. So we truly appreciate it. If it resonated, please get it out there in the world. You can also head over to patreon.com/start talking. And you can also contribute to the show where you'll get exclusive content. You'll get loads of cool free gifts and other stuff if you sign up for a subscription on there. So that just helps us continue to produce this amazing content and get it out there to the world. On that note, I just want to again thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of it. And please remember, be the best possible version of yourself you can be. Keep making a difference, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.